I'm going to make some almond burfi today. Almond burfi or Badam Katli is a delicious Indian sweet made with almonds and sugar and a little bit of cardamom, and it's often served covered in silver foil. This sweet is extremely similar to the very popular Kaju Katli, except it is made with almonds instead of cashews. And I absolutely love making this sweet because I make it with store-bought almond flour, which makes life so much easier. And I have a special trick to punch up the almond flavor. I like to use some almond paste. I get mine from Whole Foods. It comes in a little tube. Actually, show you. It comes in a little tube like this, and you can kind of just slice off a piece. I'm using about a tablespoon, and add it to your almond burfi to punch up the almond flavor, and it is fabulous. The other thing I like to do is I like to make a visual distinction between my Kaju Katli and my almond burfi or my Badam Katli. And so I cut my Badam Katli into squares instead of the diamonds that you usually find the Kaju Katli in. And then I will also put gold foil on mine, which I buy from Amazon, instead of the traditional silver, because I so strongly associate the silver with the Kaju Katli, and it's just nice to have a visual distinction. And so let me show you how to make this super easy sweet, and it's perfect for Diwali. The first step to making Badam Katli is to make the sugar syrup. And so I have some sugar here and some water. I'm going to let that come to a boil, and I'm not making any kind of a complicated sugar syrup. I'm not making a one string or two string chashni. I'm just boiling it, and as soon as it comes to a boil, I am ready to add my my next ingredients. So I'm just looking for a rolling boil. Okay, so it's come to a rolling boil, and I see an even layer of bubbles on top of the surface across the pan. So I'm going to add my almond paste here. I'm just going to kind of rake it in there and try to get it to melt. There we go. Okay, and now you can see that the mixture has gotten foamy, so this is the perfect texture for adding the almonds. I'm going to go ahead and add the almond mixture and give this a good mix. I'm going to lower the heat to medium. I'm going to cook this until it forms a dough and starts to separate from the pan. This will be about 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so this is pulling away from the pan. It's looking pretty good, so I'm going to test it. It's holding its shape, but it's still sticking to my hand, so I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. Okay, this is definitely pulling away from the pan, so let's test it. I'm going to take a little piece out. I'm going to put it on a plate. Let it cool just slightly. Yep, this looks good. It's forming a nice ball, and it's keeping its shape. So at this stage, I'm going to add the cardamom. Give that a nice mix. Okay, and I'm going to pull it off the heat and transfer it to a bowl for kneading. So transfer the mixture into a clean bowl. Okay, and now I have about a teaspoon of ghee. Just going to transfer that in as well and use my spatula to knead the mixture. Using the spatula to press and stir. As it cools, it'll start to solidify into a dough. You want to knead it for about 2 or 3 minutes. And look at that, it's getting super, super smooth. And it's almost ready. It looks really great. To get my cutting board, I have a piece of parchment here. I'm going to transfer this to the parchment. At this stage, it's pretty cool to touch. I'm just going to grease my hands real quick. And grease my hands with some ghee. I'm just going to bring it all together and knead it a little bit with my hands so that I can roll it out. Actually, let's do it straight on the cutting board. It's nice and smooth. Okay, and I'm going to bring the parchment back, and I'm going to use that to roll onto the parchment. I have my veiler, and I'm just going to roll it. I'm going to tuck the parchment under so it doesn't move around on both sides of the cutting board. Okay. I'm going to try to roll this into a rectangle so I can cut even squares. So I'm just going to push it around the edges. And roll. Different people have different preferences for the thickness of a almond katli. I like to do a little bit less than a 1/4 inch. This is the style that I grew up eating from Mithai shops, so that is my preferred thickness. But if you like a very thick katli, you can make it as thick or as thin as you like. So it turns out I didn't have as much gold foil as I thought, so I'm just going to mix it with some silver foil. I'm going to let this cool, and then we'll cut it up. The almond burfi has cooled for about a ½ hour, so I'm going to use a greased pizza cutter to cut it into squares. So I'm going to start by just cutting off the edges, just trimming the edges so that I have a straight surface to work off of. I'm going to cut all of the edges as best I can. And these little edges are perfect for snacking. I'm just going to try to cut as evenly as I possibly can, but I don't worry about it too much. There it is. These are a little bit big on this side, so I'm just going to kind of cut that a little bit. And there it is. I have some great snacking pieces for myself, and I'm just going to let it cool all the way through, and it's ready to serve. So good.